Now, his head is going to start with an oval, but remember, what I want to know first is how big it is. Or I should say, how much negative space is there between his body and his head? Let's measure that with our eyes. Now I'm going to draw a vertical mark about right here. Okay, this is a mark for negative space. How much space is there between the body and the head? Okay, now let's make another mark. Here's my border, and I'm going to come in. And the question I'm asking myself right now is, how far away is his head from my border? In other words, how much negative space is there from his head to border? And I think it's a spot that's about here. Okay, so I'm going to draw a vertical sketch mark. So instead of drawing an oval and then wondering why it's not right, I judge the space surrounding it first. Okay, now I make this judgment. Here is my line of action, right here. How far away is the bottom of his head from that? And I think it's about this far away. And I put a horizontal sketch mark right there. Okay, then how about the top of his head? Now remember this horizontal mark I made? Well, I think the top of his head should be just a little bit above that, maybe about here. Okay, now by taking my time, I've developed a type of square or rectangle right here that tells me the exact size of his head. Okay, so I'm going to draw an oval that touches the four sides. Okay, let's go ahead and sketch that in. So here this is. I think drawing circles is a little difficult, but if you know how big they're supposed to be, that makes it a lot easier. Okay, so there's this nice head. I'm trying to make that as round as I can. Go over that. That looks pretty good for the head or the skull of Pluto the dog. Okay, let's put on his neck. Now, for his neck, I use the same technique. This is my line of action. And my line of action is going to run right through the middle of his neck. The bottom of his neck is going to be about here. I'll put a little mark there for the bottom. And it's going to connect down to the bottom of my circle right here. Okay, so that's a pretty easy line to draw. Just a little curve that goes like that. So that gives me the bottom of his neck. Okay, so my next question is, if this is my line of action here, how far away is the top of his neck? It's pretty close. It's about right there. I'll put a little mark there. Then I'm going to do another little curving line, not straight like that, and connect it to his head. Okay, and that gives me the neck of my dog. Alright, I'm feeling pretty good about that. Let's draw in his snout. Now, negative space can help you a lot. That's what I'm thinking right now. How much negative space is there from my right border to the edge of his snout? Let's measure that with your eyes. And let's make a vertical mark like this. Okay, that far away from your border. Alright, but where does it start? Well, it lines up about with the edge of his head, so I'm going to use this mark right here. Okay, so his snout is going to go from here to here, and it's going to be an oval that slants up a little bit. It's a little tricky, so let's do it nice and slow. This side of the oval is going to be a little more pointed, this one's a little more rounded, and let's just do it one part at a time. Okay, so I'm going to start right here, and I'm going to draw into his head, and I'm going to connect with my line of action right here. Okay, see how I'm connecting that there? Okay. It's going to stay connected with my line of action like this until I get out maybe about right here, and then it's going to start to bend and hit my mark. Okay, and I'll stop there for a moment. I'm going to go over that a little darker so you can see it. This is the top of my oval. Starts here kind of below the neck, through the head, connecting to my line of action, then curving down and hitting my negative space mark. Okay, Let's do the bottom. Now the bottom's going to go kind of like this. I'll just kind of show you that motion right here. Now once I do that motion, I lower my pencil just a little bit and let it touch the paper. And it gives me a super light line. Okay, you can barely see that. Let's go over it now. Remember, I'm going over mine to make it darker so you can see it. But I want you to keep yours really, really light. Okay, and that gives me the snout of my dog. Okay, so I want to start today with my eraser, and what I want to do is clean this up just a little bit in some areas, especially this area here in the head where I'm going to be working. So if you have any leftover like vertical sketch marks like this here, line of action is a temporary line, and at this point you can be erasing it. I'm also erasing various vertical lines that I used to help myself get started, and I'm erasing those right now. Remember, those hopefully were drawn very light and easy to erase. See, I've got this vertical line inside his head right here. Yeah, get rid of that. That's just going to be in my way. Line of action inside his head too. Vertical line right there. A couple others right there that I'm just touching up. Okay, so as you can see with my eraser, I'm simplifying a little bit this drawing. Okay, now I'm going to continue simplifying with my eraser. I'm going to take off part of this bottom circle. Okay, so I'm going to erase it like this. Here. Kind of the bottom half of that circle right there. Okay. And then also, I'm going to take off a section of my oval. This section right here. Like that. So now I kind of have a combination of my circle and oval. Now that shape there is just a rough approximation of where this head is going to be. And you know, it can be a little challenging. So let's work carefully and slowly, and let's detail this head. Now today I'm going to use my mechanical pencil, and I like to draw with my mechanical pencil sometimes. And I'm going to start this great detailing right here where my circle meets my oval with this little corner. That's where I'm going to start. And I'm going to start by sketching in a line that curves downward. I'll draw it really light at first with you, of course. I want this to kind of curve downward like this. And you know, each time I do a line, I'm going to draw it super light at first. Then I'm going to kind of go over it with you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with that line right there. Notice about how far it goes down. I don't want it to go down too far. Maybe about right there. Okay, that's a nice way to start. Now, right at the bottom of this line, I'm going to do another detail line. It's basically going to be straight across. I'm sketching it really light. And I said straight across, but what I really meant was fairly straight with just a little bit of a curve into it, kind of like this here. Okay, so basically straight, but just a little bit curvy like that. Okay, so two lines, one that's curving down, one that's kind of going straight across like that. Okay, excellent. Ready to work on the eyes. Now I'm going to start with the eyes right here, kind of above this middle, this curving line that I drew, right in the middle of it, and almost touching it. I'm just going to put a little mark right there. See where I put that? Just right above that line. Okay, now what I'm going to draw is part of his eyes and his eyebrow, and I'm going to draw kind of a V. I'm going to do this side of it first. It's going to go up. It's going to be kind of straight, but there's going to be a little bit of a curve into it at the end, like that. Now I'm going to go over that again with you, just a little bit curvy, but the line is basically straight up and down. Okay. Then I'm going to do a sketch mark. Now even though I'm doing details, I like to do sketch marks. So from the very top of this line, I'm going to go straight across to the left with a straight across horizontal sketch mark. This will be a temporary mark, but it's going to help me. Because I want the tops of both of my V's to be on the same line. So this one touches here, my other one's going to touch here. Now my second one's going to slant. I'm going to do this super light so you can see it. It's going to slant like this. It's going to go up. I'm going to put just a little bit of a curve on it at the very top. Like that. I'm going to make that a little darker so you can see it a little better. Okay, I'm just going to draw over that. And that kind of gives me a V that's kind of tilting, as you can see. Now as I go, I'm going to do some erasing. And I'm going to take off this horizontal sketch mark. I just wanted it there for a minute, and I'm going to get rid of it. I lost a little bit of the top of my head when I did that. That's okay, I'm just going to leave it like that. Okay, so I've got this V, and now I'm ready to draw his eyes. Now what I'm going to do is near the top of my V, but not at the very top, maybe about right there, I'm going to put a little mark there. About right there. That's where I want to draw the top of my first eye. And it's going to touch about right here, kind of right on my simple shape line for his head. Okay, now I'm basically just going to connect those, but I don't want it to be straight, I want it to have a little bit of curve to it. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, now as I work, I'm going to clean up a little. So right now I'm cleaning up a little bit of the side of his head, simple shape, like that. Okay, and that's eye number 1. Now in this case, the tops of the two eyes are straight across from each other. So to help myself, I do this. Top of my first eye, I'm going to draw again a horizontal sketch mark straight across to the left until I hit the other side of my V, right there, and then I'll put a little mark right there for the top of eye number 2. Then immediately, since that looks weird, I'm going to take off my sketch mark. You know, I put sketch marks on there to help me, then I like to erase them. Okay, bottom of his eye. Now look at this kind of straight across horizontal line that's got a little bit of curve to it. I'm going to come on this line about right there. And I'll put a little mark there. Now once again, that's a style that I like to draw, is I like to put marks where things touch and then connect. Okay, so I'm going to connect these two with a nice curving line. I'm going to draw that super light like this. You can see how light I put that in? And the reason I do that is I don't know if I got it right, and I don't want to make it dark if it's wrong. Okay, now I like that okay, I'm going to go over that again. So you can see that a little bit better. This nice curving line like that. Okay, details. Let's put in some pupils. Okay, so right over here I'm just going to draw this little curving shape over to the edge of his eye. And then just real quick, I'm going to do a little bit of shading on that. Inside that shape right there. Okay, that wasn't too tough. Let's do another one. I'm going to put just a really short line right there. Okay, that's the edge of it. Now, what I like to do is find all the edges, or all the ends. It's going to touch this line about right there, really short line. And it's going to touch right there, like that. Okay, so now I kind of found the edges of it, and I'm just going to draw just really light and connect like this. It's kind of a straight line with a little bit of curve at the end. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and do my shading right now too. I'm going to shade that in, as you can see. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. I think it looks a little weird right now, but I think that looks looking kind of fun. Okay, eyebrows. Now, for his eyebrow, what I'm going to draw is right above his eye right here, I'm kind of showing you where. I'm going to put a little loop, okay, and it's going to touch his eye right there. Put a little mark where it's going to start, and it's going to stop about right there. See those two little marks? Make that just a little dark so you can see. Then I'm going to do this little loop like this. I'm going to draw it super light. It's just a little loop that goes right above his eye. Now I did that so light, I'm looking at that, and then I'll go over it a little bit darker, like this. Okay, and there I have kind of like his eyebrow. Alright, let's do another one. Now watch this technique again. From the top of this eyebrow, I do again that horizontal sketch mark, going straight across to the left. Okay, that tells me where the top of his eyebrow is going to be. Now let's find it. I want it to start about right here. I'll put a little mark there. And I want it to end somewhere over here. I'm kind of looking at that, maybe about right there. I'll put another dot right there. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is just draw like this. Slanted, sketching it super light until I hit my horizontal line there. Then I'm going to come up, touch that line, then bring it down to my dot, just like that. I'm going to go over that again so you can see it real well and then catch up with me just like that. Okay, now those eyebrows kind of give him this not very happy expression on his face. He's not going to be as happy as Flounder. Okay, then with my pencil, I'm going to take off my sketch mark between the eyebrows. Okay, I think that's looking really good. Wipe that off. Okay, now I'm going to work again here between the eyebrows, and I'm going to draw a line between the eyebrows, and all I just need it to be is just curving. And I want it to be just a hair under the top of the eyebrows, so I'm going to go right there, and right there, and just in between them, I'm going to have a little bit of a curve. I don't want it to be too flat. I'm thinking of a spot like that. And then with my eraser, I'll just clean up just a little bit of sketchiness right there. Kind of like to erase as I go. Hope you're kind of doing that too. Okay, I think that's looking really good. Okay, let's move on to his mouth. Now, as I'm looking at the bottom of my eye, I'm kind of deciding that this horizontal line, I made it a hair long. So with my eraser, I'm just going to take off a little of the end of it, just a little, right there. You know, just a little bit. Okay. Now, one of the techniques that I use when drawing is I compare things. So what I want to do right now is compare something old that I drew, this line here under his eye, with something new that I'm about to draw, his mouth. Okay, here I go. So I'm going to take the end of this line right here, and I'm going to draw, slanting down to the left, a sketch mark, only that far away, and then I'm going to put a dot right there at the end of the line. Okay, I'm going to take my eraser, take off that slanted sketch mark. Okay, that dot that I just put on my paper tells me where to start his mouth. Okay, so right here at this dot, I'm going to slant down again about this far, and I'm going to draw this super skinny triangle right in here. Okay, it's really small. This triangle right there. That's kind of like a shadow at the corner of his mouth. Okay, very good. Let's keep going. Now, from my triangle, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to draw a line that's going to go like this. I'm just kind of showing you this motion. Now let me sketch it in really light. Okay, it's going to go like this. It's going to be about that far from my eye. See how far away it is from my eye right there? Then it's going to start to curve downward a bit, and it's going to run into my simple shape oval, like that. I'll make that a little darker for you now. So here I go, drawing that line. Now I don't want to make it darker down here. I'll just run it into my simple shape oval, and then I'll leave it alone. Okay. Alright, Like I said, this dog's not really happy this time. Alright, very good. Now, let me show you another trick of drawing when I've already mentioned it today. It's to compare something new with something you already drew. So I'm going to look right here. Remember I drew the corner of his eye a few minutes ago? This corner of his eye? Now from this corner of his eye I'm going to draw straight down a vertical line. Now that makes him look really weird. But this is just temporary. And the reason I did that is because his bottom lip is going to touch his mouth right there. So I'll put just a little mark that slants this way. Okay. Then immediately, since he looks so strange, I take off that vertical sketch mark. But the reason I did it was to figure out something where something touched. Okay, now here I go with his lip. Now, I'm going to come over here, about where the end of my simple shape oval is, and I'm going to draw this. I'll do it sort of quick and light, and then I'll go over it. Okay, I'm going to follow this down like this. I'm going to change direction and draw right towards my mark with a line that kind of goes upwards and hits it right there like that. Okay, now let me go over that again. Make sure you're catching up. There's his back lip. It goes up and hits his mouth right there like that. Okay, I think that's looking really good. Now I'm going to take off with my eraser kind of the bottom of my simple shape oval down here. I'm going to take that off just like that. I'm going to clean up the back of that lip just a little bit. It's got some sketchy lines there. Okay, and now I'm looking at that. I think that's looking really good so far on this dog. Okay, it's time for his nose and his snout. Alright, now this gets a little bit tricky here, but trust me, we'll be able to make this work. Okay, now I'm going to follow his mouth down till I get about right here. And then right here I'm going to curve up, kind of with a hook line, like that. I'll go over that again, help you catch up. Just follow the mouth down, and see how I drew that hook before I got to the end of my simple shape. Like that. Okay, very good. Let's keep going here. Touching this hook right about on my simple shape line, about right there. That's what I'm going to draw again. Okay, here I go. I'll sketch this, then I'll review it with you. I'm going to go up, kind of near the top of my simple shape. And I'm going to keep going. I'm going to bend it down for another curving line. And I want this to go down about right there. Okay, now let me review that. Touched right there, near the end of my simple shape. And I'll curve that down like that. Getting my eraser, I'm going to clean up the end of my simple shape. Okay, and I'm feeling pretty good about that. I think that looks okay. I think I'm going to change this angle just a little bit, just a little more this way. So if you know, see, I just noticed a small little error right there, so I'm going to change that just a little bit, and I'll touch it up. And don't ever be afraid to use that eraser if you see a little problem. Okay, let's do another little wrinkle. Alright, this line is a wrinkle. Let's have one that touches it right here, kind of a little bit under my simple shape line. I'm going to draw another one that kind of goes out and over about that far. I'll go over that again. Okay, let's do another one. Let's have a touch about right here. And we'll draw this over about that far, like that. Okay, so let's review that. Wrinkle number 1, wrinkle number 2, and then go back right under your eye, and let's just connect that down right there. Okay, let's make sure we got the top of that. That snout's really tricky. Okay, grab your eraser. Let's erase that simple shape oval. See how that oval is pretty much disappeared off our paper. Just doing a little more touch-ups there. Okay. Now I think he looks so funny right now because he doesn't have a nose on him. Every dog needs a nose. Okay, his nose is an oval. Now, let me show you where it's going to be. I'm going to mark the bottom of it with kind of a slanted line about right here. Because, once again, I want to know how big it's going to be before I draw it. Then I'm going to go outside his snout to a spot that's about, I think about right there. I'm going to do another slanted line. Okay. Now that line, those two lines tell me how big his nose is. And it's an oval that's tilted. So I'm going to sketch it in. I'm not very good at drawing ovals, so I have to draw them over a couple times sometime. I'm going to sketch in this oval like that. Now I drew that really light, and I don't think it's that great. I'm going to work on it for a minute and go over it. And try and get it nice and smooth. And if I can, symmetrical, meaning the same on both sides. Okay, now my drawing at this moment I think looks really strange because it looks like his nose is see-through. Alright, so then I take my eraser and inside his nose I erase that snout line. And just by doing that, that makes my drawing look so much better. Okay, excellent. Now, inside his nose is a highlight, or I should say a white oval. So, and it's fairly large in his nose. So I'm going to sketch it super light so you can barely see it. Then I'm going to go over it a little darker so you can see it a little bit better. It's just another oval inside his nose, just like that. And then I want to do a little bit of shading. So here I go, I'm just going to quickly fill in this part of his nose like this. So I've got that white highlight, as you can see there. Boy, I think that's looking really good so far. Okay, excellent. Alright, now we're coming down the home stretch. We've got just a few more things to do. I'm going to go back now. I still have my simple shaped circle back here. I'm going to leave it on there for just another minute or two, then I'm going to erase it. Okay, let's look at his eyebrow again. Here's his eyebrow. Touching his eyebrow just a little below the top of it, I'm going to put a little mark right there. And I'm just going to draw, basically following my simple shape oval. And I'm going to go out with a curve and I'm going to go down, oh, about that far. I think that looks pretty good. Okay, I think at this point I'm done with my simple shaped circle. I'm going to get rid of it. Now he looks a little funny because he's no longer connected to his neck. That's okay, we'll fix that here in just 1 second. Okay, dogs, they need ears. And I'm going to draw what I like to call an ear socket. Okay, now let me show you where that's going to be. It's going to be about straight down from his eyebrow, about that far away, straight down from that eyebrow line. I'll put a little dot there. That's where I want to start this socket. And basically the shape of it is just kind of like a tilted U. So I'm going to draw it really light like this at first. And I'll come up for the other side of that. See how light I made that? And the reason I do that is because, I'm not sure if it's good. I don't know if I love it or not. I think it's not bad. I'm going to go over it a little bit more, make it just a hair lower. And I'll bring that up right there. There's that little U shape. Okay. Now before I attach the ear to this socket, I'm going to do this bump on the back of his head. Okay, and I think this bump, I think he looks really funny, like something's missing right here, and it's that bump. Okay, so back to his eyebrow, And right where this curving line touches his eyebrow, right there, put a little mark. Remember, I like to know where something starts and stops. That's what I'm doing now. And then on his ear socket, right here, I put another mark. Okay, so those are my 2 marks that I'm looking at. And what I want to do, I'll show you this motion, is I want to draw right here kind of a loop or a half circle right in there. Okay, now I kind of showed you that motion, I'll just go over it really light and sketchy. And I'm going to draw in this big bump on his head. See, it's just kind of like a half circle there. Okay, and I'm going to go over that just a little bit darker. Okay, coming down the home stretch. Alright, boy, that's looking really good. Totally turning into Pluto. Okay, let's do his ear. Now let me show you that technique again of how I look at something, see where it touches things I've drawn, and I work on them. Okay, so his ear is going to start inside the socket. Let's put a little mark right here, inside that socket right there. Okay, it's going to be there. And then I've got to tell you that this ear is going to touch his lip. Right there. Let's put a little mark there. Okay, and let's go ahead and start that. So from right here, I'm going to draw this little curving line down to this one. And I'm going to touch that right there. Okay, now see how his ear touches his lip? That's very important. Now his ear is going to come all the way out down here, and it's going to touch his arm, which I have right here. So let me sketch this super light at first. I'm going to come down and touch his arm right there. Okay, now let me go over that again. So his ear starts in the socket, it touches his lip right there. It keeps on curving out and down until it touches his arm right there. Okay, and then his ear is a little thicker at the end and it's skinny where it starts. So I'm going to put a mark on his arm for how thick that ear should be at the end. Let's put a little mark right there. Okay, now what I want to have happen with his ear is I want it to start here and get skinny right here, and as it goes out like this, it's going to get thicker and thicker. Okay, so let's start skinny, then make it wider. Let's sketch it first. Remember, when I use the word sketch, that means to draw it super light in case you got a problem. Makes it easy to erase. So I'm sketching out and just telling myself, okay, you keep making that ear a little bit wider as you come out. There you go. Okay, let's go ahead and make that line a little more finalized. Okay, now look at your ear. If you really like the shape of your ear, it's touching his arm right there, I want you to go ahead and fill that ear in with some shading. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and do that like this. I'm going to fill this ear in with shading. Like this. I'll just come up here and fill that in. Now, you want to make sure that it looks like his ear is in front of his ear socket. And that little shading did that for me. Okay, one more thing before let's turn you loose. Okay, let's work on his neck. You know what? I'm going to take my eraser and erase my simple shaped neck real quick. I sort of know where it is. Okay, now his neck is going to touch right here where the bump touches the socket. Right exactly there. And then I'm just going to do a little curving line out here. Like that. Make sure it's a little curvy, not too straight. Okay, then the bottom of his neck is about even with his lip, like right here. And I want this neck to curve up just a little, like that. Okay. Now notice how a few minutes ago we started with an oval and a circle. And now we've detailed carefully the head of Pluto. I'm just going to erase just a little bit more inside this neck and clean that up. And there we have it. Very fine thing of Pluto. Oh, wait, I forgot a detail. Dog has to have some whiskers. Let's put on some whiskers before we wrap this up. Okay, whiskers are easy. There's a couple dots. Let's put one dot for one whisker right there. Now, I don't want that dot to be too big. It'll look weird. This is a small one. I'm going to slant down and to the left. See how my pencil's just kind of going right there. Whisker number 2. Okay. Then whisker number 3 is going to be right here, right there. Little dot. Okay, 2 more. This one's just a small little line that pokes out of his snout. Don't make it too long, it's just really short. Points up just a little. And then this one right here, really short, points down just a little bit.